It's an honor to be back here once again. Let me say thank you to so many friends whom I've made over the years of campaigning, coming to Staten Island, seeking your vote over the last 7.5, going on 8 years representing you. And let me recognize somebody whom I actually think I met before anybody else in this room. And I don't mean to refer to another borough, but a fellow kid from the Bronx, Stanley Friedman. It's nice to be here in your conference. Thank you. Stanley is being nice to me. He's not asking me what part of the Bronx, because then I'd have to say Riverdale, and people would say that's not really the Bronx that you think of it as. But it is great to be here. And John and all my colleagues in government and many of you who care about the course of our civil society and how we move forward. What you said is right. The last 12 years have really been years of stagnation. They've been years of ossification. There was a headline in the New York Times that captured Governor Pataki's leadership style, and it compared him to footprints in the sand that are washed away whenever the incoming tide approaches. We clearly need something different in the state of New York. And this is not said as a partisan analysis, even though we're here at what is a partisan luncheon. It's said as an objective observation about the state. There are needs that are not being met. There are demands that are not being filled. We lost, over the course of the last 4 years, we lost 180,000 people, more than any other state in the nation. We lost those very children, aged, well, I shouldn't say this, you're not a child. I'm thinking about this, I'll tell you why in a second, aged 20 to 34, who build our future. They're moving out of the state. They're going somewhere else because they think opportunity is more likely to be found in North Carolina or Arizona or Florida, and that's a mistake. But it's also a commentary on what has happened to New York. We know, because we're here, many of us, if not all of us, grew up here, we think of this as defining opportunity. And we know that a government that doesn't react to changing economic circumstances, that does not invest to create opportunity, ultimately permits stagnation to continue and will permit a trajectory that right now is downward to continue. And that is not what we will tolerate, because we're New Yorkers. And we understand that we expect to be first, not last. When reports come out that our state government is the most dysfunctional, we say this is not the New York that we grew up in. When we cannot build, what we were talking a few minutes ago, a bus depot that is absolutely necessary to permit bus transportation in this borough to move as it should. When we can't build the transportation, whether it's a subway, a highway, a bus depot, a high-speed rail link between New York and Albany, things we know we need to do. When we can't figure out how to invest in education, we can't figure out, as Dr. Jonathan Cohen, who has spoken, and John Lavelle is so right. John went around the state when he was running for lieutenant governor and said, we've got to fix the healthcare system that isn't functional. We are spending more money than we can afford. We aren't getting the quality that we deserve, and we aren't thinking about the strategic decisions we need to make. And ignoring them will not get us to the answer. So we do need change agents. And if to the extent that you say I've been a change agent over the last 8 years, I appreciate that. Not all change is good. It's not as though you go in with a bull in a china shop saying you sweep everything aside, but you look analytically and say, what do we have to do differently? And the reality is we need to do many things differently in this state. From housing, I talked to Randy Lee just for a couple minutes before we came to lunch. We know, and I asked him a simple question, how many units do we need? He said 250,000 units. Now, whether we're off by 10% or even 50%, the need for housing in this city is astronomical. The inability that we have faced, the inability to build affordable housing, is one of the reasons our kids are leaving. We have property taxes going through the roof, property values going up, which is great if you own, but it isn't great if you see an assessment that goes up, you see a property tax that's imposed upon you without a revenue stream to go with it. It's a bad tax, it's poorly structured, and we have not been building affordable housing so we can permit employers to pay entry-level jobs at wages that they can afford. The system isn't working right now. And what we are getting instead of thoughtful, long-range answers is Band-Aids that are placed over these problems, which are merely designed to defer the day that we have to confront it. And that doesn't work. In the long run, that doesn't work. There was an earlier moment in our state history when we had real leadership from both sides of the aisle. You know, you may not like all the people I'm going to mention. Rockefeller showed real leadership. He was a Republican. He built, he created the SUNY system, right? Whether it's Mario Cuomo, Hugh Carey, you go back, Again, agree or disagree on policy issues that they spoke to. These were individuals who had big dreams and decided New York could be a beacon of hope and opportunity, and they did things differently. Governor Dewey, Thomas Dewey, Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, we had governors, Lehman, Harriman, governors who understood that change was necessary, who understood how to make it real. That is what we've got to do. And I'm not here I'm obviously going to say something about Staten Island. I will not forget Staten Island. You are the gem of New York City. But you're not going to be the forgotten gem. There are many folks who keep trying to persuade me to move, and I would love to. But as I said, I have my eyes on a house a little farther north, and so I'm not. But this is a gem in the city, and we need to make sure we invest fairly so you get the resources you deserve. Across the board, all the issues, whether it's healthcare, whether it's transportation, whether it is education, you need to get the resources you deserve. You are seeing population growth. And we want to permit that in a reasoned way so that it fits with smart growth, and we will make that happen. Many of us in this room believe that government matters. And let me end on this thought. We have lived through, I think, an era during which we have denigrated the very purpose of government. And it has been an easy thing to do. Many people have said, and it began with President Reagan back in '76 when he ran and lost, but he began to articulate the notion that government was the enemy, and that somehow we wanted merely to eliminate the public sector or squeeze it so desperately that it couldn't perform the functions that it needed to perform. And to a certain extent, we are now paying the price for that. It's why we have dockets that are overloaded in the court system, classrooms that are overstocked. We don't have enough teachers to educate our children. We haven't educated or invested enough to build the classrooms that we need, build the public transportation systems, build the housing, the things that actually are necessary inputs to permit a society to grow. We haven't done them. Government matters. What it means when you're in government is we've got to be awfully smart about how we spend the public's money. We can't afford to raise taxes in the state. We know that. But what we have to do is spend our dollars wisely and invest them wisely so we can afford to grow our economy. If we do it smart and believe in the mission, then we will succeed. What we've seen in the last 12 years is leadership from somebody who doesn't believe in the mission. And as a consequence of that, they have put the wrong people in charge. I'm not going to name names from up here, but we know which agencies have been absolute failures. We know which agencies they're now reappointing the very same people who've been absolute failures, but that's an issue for a separate day. I won't name names. We'll have to deal with that come January. But let me tell you, we believe in putting the right people in charge so the right decisions get made, so government works, and as a consequence, the public gets what it deserves for its tax dollars. That's what the Democratic Party stands for. That's what it's always stood for. If we bring back that spirit to governance, we will succeed. And then a few years from now, I hope people will look and say, yeah, you know what? These guys know how to govern. That's what we have to accomplish. That's what we will do. To my colleagues in government, I tell you, we're going to be great partners. This notion that somehow any executive in the state of New York has to be at war with the legislature, that's wrong. We owe it to the public to work things through and figure out what the public good demands and requires. I've said to a few of you in the room who are judges, it's not just because I happen to have cases before you, it's because I actually, maybe a little piece of it, but I actually have always believed that the judiciary is the most important branch of government. And it's about time we dealt with you with the respect that you deserve. And the reason I have always believed that, it's not just because I went to law school and the law is something very special to me. It's because it is the judiciary that always brings us back. When the executive and the legislative branches go off track, the judiciary is always there as the conscience of the community. It has inbred, sort of steeped in the DNA of the judiciary, is an understanding of what we're all about. And so we will deal with the judiciary the way it deserves to be dealt with, in terms of reform, in terms of pay, so many different things. All of you, thank you for this honor. I'm going to hang around for a couple minutes.